What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and our 2023 college football predictions continue for the 2023 college football season. Up next are the Baylor Bears, a team coming off a pretty up and down season for 2022. They went 6-7 overall last year in the 2022 season. So yeah, it was a bit of a struggle last year for this Baylor team. Honestly, people think this was kind of a, step back year for Baylor, and obviously a disappointing season for Baylor fans. But, I think Baylor, was a better team overall than that. I knew they were going to take a step back from last year. You look at this team, they were pretty young last year as well. So, remember a couple years ago, they won the Big 12 championship. So, maybe this is kind of the year where Baylor can probably get back to the Big 12 championship. My thoughts on this Baylor team, though, I think they're going to be pretty good this year. I think they're going to be quite up and down, though, this year, maybe perhaps, but I think this team could probably make it to a bowl game somehow. You look at their schedule this year, they'll play Texas State, Utah, LIU in the non-conference, so they don't have a tough non-conference schedule. When you got Utah, though, on that schedule out of the Pac-12, that makes the schedule a little bit tougher. The good news is they get that game at home, and then you got the rest of the Big 12 schedule. They do play Cincinnati, UCF, both on the road, and they obviously play Houston at home, so they do play three of the newcomers in the Big 12 on their schedule this year. But let's get right to the prediction here for this Baylor team, and let's go game by game and give you an official prediction for this team for 2023. So they kick things off here with Texas State here at home on September the 2nd in a non-conference game. This is a game I think Baylor should take care of business in. They have no business to lose this game. I think they start out 1-0 pretty easily with a win over Texas State on September the 2nd. That should be an easy win there for Baylor, and I got them starting out 1-0. Utah at home next year on September the 9th. A big non-conference game here between the Pac-12 and the Big 12. You normally don't see the Big 12 and Pac-12 go at it, normally, in the college football seasons and the regular season. You don't see a non-conference game there between these two conferences, but this is going to be a pretty interesting game. Two great teams here. You got Utah that is definitely going to be, maybe a contender for the Pac-12 championship. However, this game is in the month of September, and it's definitely one of those upset alert type games. Baylor, I think, with them being at home, it's going to be a huge advantage for them in this one. And I done Utah's prediction video a few weeks ago, and I already predicted Baylor to win this one here. It's one of those upset alert type games, and, it's one of those home field advantage type games, and obviously a coin flip for me. I know Utah has a lot of production coming back this year, but I think with Baylor, I think it's just a really tough place to play. With that being said, I think Baylor wins a close one over Utah here in an upset. So I think the Baylor Bears beat Utah here in a close one. Back and forth game here. It goes all to the fourth quarter, and I think Baylor wins that one, though, at the end of the day, with them being at home in a coin flip game for me. And I think Baylor takes care of business against LIU here as well, so I got Baylor starting out 3-0. Then they'll play Texas at home after that on September the 23rd. Texas is going to have the offense to score a lot of points in this game. They're also going to have a pretty good defense, but if you saw my Texas prediction video like last month, I already predicted Baylor to win this one. It's another one of those upset alert type games that you just never can sleep on. I think Baylor with home field advantage, it's kind of similar to the Utah game. It goes with all four quarters. I think Baylor, though, this is one of those upset alert type games where kind of Texas, kind of a little bit chokes a little bit. So with that being said, I think Baylor gets the close win here over Texas in an upset, and I think Baylor wins that one here against Texas at home on September 23rd. And this schedule really sets up nicely for Baylor. They get 4 home games to start out the year for the 2023 season. You get Utah at home and also Texas at home, so that's the good news there. You potentially get 2 top 25 teams at home to start out the month of September. Then UCF is after that on September the 30th on the road. This is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. You got UCF that was a really good team last year. They're definitely going to be a good team this year. This team definitely has a lot of production coming back. And if you look at both rosters here in this game, they're both kind of similar in returning production. However, talent-wise, I think does go to the Baylor Bears in this one. But I think UCF, with them being at home, it's obviously a tough game to call. It's a coin flip type game for me. And usually when these coin flip games happen, I usually go with home field advantage. So with that being said, I think this game goes for all 4 quarters in this one. I like UCF here to knock off Baylor at home and give Baylor their first loss of the season. So I got Baylor now falling to 4-1 after that loss to UCF on the road. Then they'll play Texas Tech at home on October the 7th. Texas Tech's going to be a pretty good team this year. I think this will be a top 25 team perhaps. This game is going to go back and forth. It goes all to the fourth quarter as well. And if you look at the schedule this year for Baylor, I think they're going to have a lot of shootout-type games here in this one. I think Texas Tech is another one of those shootout-type games that's going to come down to the wire. And like I said, both of these teams are definitely maybe top 25 teams and dark horse contenders in the Big 12 this year. But Baylor is at home in this game, and I think that's the reason why I think Baylor will win this game here against the Red Raiders. So I'm going with Baylor here to knock off Texas Tech here at home on October the 7th. That puts their record at 5-1. They'll get a bye week before playing Cincinnati on the road next year on October 21st. I know Cincinnati lost a lot of production from last year, but let's be honest, Baylor lost a lot of production from last year as well. They were young last year, but they think they're going to be a little bit younger again this year in 2023. I think Cincinnati can make this game interesting. I think this kind of is similar to the UCF game where it's going to be a fourth quarter type ball game here. It's definitely one of those shootout type games and definitely one of those upset alert type games. If Baylor was ranked in the top 15 by this point, this is one of those games where it's an upset alert type game. So with that being said, I think this is another upset here. I'm going with Cincinnati here to upset Baylor. I know Baylor fans won't agree with that pick, but I like the Bearcats here in a close one over Baylor. When I look back on this game, I did have Baylor as the favorite in this game, but when I look back on it now, I think it's going to be an interesting battle here between the Bearcats and the Bears. So I like Cincinnati here in a close one over Baylor. That puts Baylor's record at 5-2. Then it's Iowa State here at home on October 28th. Iowa State is kind of similar to Baylor last year. They were really young. Both of these teams had really up and down seasons. Iowa State, though, they turned out to be terrible last year, but I think this Iowa State team, people are kind of sleeping on them in the Big 12. I think this is going to be a better Iowa State team. I think they're going to probably lose some close games perhaps, though. But, they get Iowa State here at home. If you're Baylor, that's the good news here. I think this is another one of those shootout-type ball games, but maybe it's close in the first half, but I think Baylor will pull away in the second half. And I think Baylor gets the win here over Iowa State here at home. That puts their record at 6-2. Then they'll play Houston here on November the 4th. Houston's going to be a pretty good offensive team. They got a lot of production coming back on that offensive side of the football. Defensively is what concerns me about the Cougars this year. I mean, they lost a lot of production on that side of the football last year, and I think Baylor has a big advantage there, and I think they have a big advantage in this game being at home against Houston here. With that being said, I think Baylor gets the win here over Houston pretty easily. Not pretty easily, but I think at least by double digits they win that one over Houston, and that puts their record at 7-2. Kansas State on the road next year on November the 11th. Obviously the defending Big 12 champions. You look at this Kansas State team, I know I've been getting them a little bit of doubt this year. I just think this is going to be a step back year. I know they got a lot of production coming back on the offensive side of the football, but I think Baylor can make this game pretty interesting perhaps. I think, it goes either way, but I think, Kansas State with them being at home, I like the home field advantage for the Wildcats here. I think this game is probably close in the first half, but second half I think Kansas State will pull away in the second half, and I think Kansas State wins it here at home against Baylor, and I think Baylor loses their third game on the year at Kansas State. Then it's TCU on the road next, so they have to play back-to-back road games here with Kansas State and TCU, two teams that just went to the Big 12 championship last year. And if you look at the game from last year against TCU, Baylor was the only team that probably could have beaten TCU and given them their first loss of the season. I think this game is kind of similar to last year. It's really close. It's a short-scoring type ball game, but maybe it gets in the 20s, maybe in the second half. I think this will be a shootout type ball game in the second half. Maybe first half it will be an off-defensive battle. However, TCU has home field advantage in this one. It's a tough game to call. You never know what can happen in this game. So I like the Horned Frogs here to get a close win over the Baylor Bears. And I think Baylor loses back-to-back road games here with Kansas State, then TCU. That puts their record at 7-4. Then they'll end things out here with West Virginia at home on November 25th. I don't expect West Virginia to be all that good this year. I'm not really high on the Mountaineers. Really not that much this year. I don't think West Virginia is going to be all that good. However, maybe West Virginia can give Baylor a scare a little bit here in the first few minutes, but I think Baylor will pull away in this game, and I think they end out 2023 with a win over West Virginia at home on November 25th. So I got Baylor finishing 2023 with a record of 8-4 for the 2023 2023 season. I think that's a fair prediction for Baylor. They do got some tough road games with UCF, Cincinnati, Kansas State, and TCU, but they get Utah at home, Texas at home. I mean, you got two of your toughest games there at home on September the 9th and September the 23rd. So there's a pretty good chance that Baylor could probably go, 9-3 perhaps. I think that's their best case scenario. Worst case scenario, I think, would be probably 7-5, maybe 6-6. If this team went 6-6 again, I think it would be just a big disappointment for Baylor. However, I think the schedule really sets up nicely for them to have a really good season. So I like Baylor going 8-4 in 2023. Let me guys know what you think about this Baylor team. What do you think their record is for 2023? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.